So here's the playing field for your first quarter engineering project, the Mousetrap Car. You might have to build this on your own somewhere at home and record it working. I will be sending out the exact dimensions for every grade along the wall here. So, and the width of this rail. You can't go outside of this lane. So if it hits the yellow tape or it hits the blue stripe on the right, it would be DQ'd. It won't count for anything no matter where it stops. So you have to stay in between those two things. So your grades, you can get a 1 if you built a car. It doesn't move, but you built something, so you can get a 1. If here's the starting line. This is which is where the starting line is going to be here. And you'll see that if you put it down behind the line and it actually goes over the line, it goes forward just a little bit, that's a 1.5, a 1.5. So we start traveling down the lane, and we get to this first blue stripe right here to get just a little bit over the first line there, and that is a 2.0, a 2.0, which is a C. So all you got to do is just go from that starting line right there to here, and you got a 2.0. A little further down here, halfway through, you got a 2.3. If you get to this next blue lane, you have a 2.5. So if you get to this point right here, you'll have a B. All you have to do is get there. You have to get there twice, because you're gonna have an average between your two best runs. Your two best runs that you're gonna have, we're gonna average those, and that'll be what your grade will be. So if you can get from the starting point to this line here, you got a B. And then you got to go a long ways before you really start getting bigger grades. So if you get to here, and I will give you the measurements here later on, I haven't measured them yet, you get a 2.8, and then there's a 2.9. These are about 50 centimeters apart. A 3.0, that's an A. If you can get to that line right there, it's a 3.0. And then you have 3.1. And then if you can get any part of the car, straddling this line, or any part of the car that just touches this blue right here, it would be a 3.3. To get a 3.5, you need to have your car end completely within this zone, not touching the edge of the wall or the yellow tape or the line. It has to be completely in. It can't touch the back. If it rolls all the way in and hits the back, you'll see your grade is a 0. So it's kind of depressing. So go in there real slow and it'll hit the back thing and it'll be a 0. You cannot go over or touch this back line, otherwise it's a DQ. It's out of bounds. You have to stay in bounds the whole time. It must stop in bounds. It must stop somewhere in this blue rectangle to get a 3.5. I will talk a little bit later about how you can get a 4.0 when I send out the rules for all of this, but I would like for you to be able to do your test here at the school. Hopefully sometime before the end of the quarter, you'll be able to bring your car in and you can run it down this thing here, and we'll be able to test. Even the remote students, if you can have a time where you can maybe come in and meet me in here or something, just by ourselves or something, you could do that. If you're really uncomfortable with that, then I'm just going to have you guys build your own little course and just record it for me, I guess. So that's what you'll have to do. So I will send out the exact measurements of this entire course. If you need to rebuild it somewhere in, I don't know if anybody lives in a mall or something like that, then you'd be able to do this. But otherwise, you got to find a lane like this that you'd be able to run the car. I'll add a little bit more video and explain a little bit about Mousetrap cars here in a little bit. Okay, so here's more about the Mousetrap car. You can find this on engineeringu.com under the engineering projects. The Mousetrap car, it's your first quarter project. You should read through this to make sure you understand everything. I've already showed you the zone where you can drive your car. We normally do this in partners, but this time we're going to just do it individually since we're social distancing. And here's the criteria and constraints that you need to make sure you understand. each team, that's just one person, will enter one Mousetrap powered car. No commercial Mousetrap car kits. The car shall have a minimum of 2 wheels in contact with the resting surface at all times. The sole power source of the car shall be a mousetrap as a part of the car. So you can use a mousetrap. You cannot use a rat trap. That traps rats, not mice. Must be a mousetrap. There are different types, different strengths of mousetraps, so you can test some different ones out. But if you need a mousetrap, I have a whole bunch of mousetraps here in the room. The trip mechanism should be removed. The trip mechanism is this. Well, it's been removed on this one. So normally there's a thing where the mouse put the bait and stuff, and the little bar goes over. You can take all that part. You can take all that part off. Only a string or cable may be attached to the bow for transmission of energy, so you can't use a rubber band or something elastic. Usually we use fishing wire. It's about the best thing you can possibly do. The bow must remain unaltered and not extended in any way. So that one there I'm going to highlight because every year someone brings it in and they've changed it. So the bow right here cannot be extended or changed. You're gonna look online for mousetrap cars, and you're gonna see people put a big stick on this so they can pull a lot more string. You can't do anything like that. You can't change this bow at all. You're gonna have string attached to the bow, and you can't change this bow in any way. You cannot change the length of it. Some of you are still going to do that even after I've told you not to, and I'll just have you redo the car. So you won't be able to do that. So just get over it right now. Okay, the mousetrap may be screwed, hot glued, or taped to your car. The maximum dimensions, 40 centimeters by 20 by 20. So this car here is under 40 centimeters long, under 20 centimeters this way, and it's under 20 centimeters high. Here's the grades based on these things. You've seen the video already of the entire zone, but I actually kind of drew it out here too on the dimensions. So if you're building your own zone at home to be able to run your car, this is what you'd have to set up. You could set it up with like tape or something maybe and show me how that works. So normally we have a whole kind of system where we decide how we're going to get your grade. We're going to really lower that down this year. You need to, I'm going to give you a grade based on the average of the 2 best runs you have. So if you're here at the school, you can always go out and run it out on the field, and I'll just keep track of what your best 2 runs are. If you're at home or you want to do it from home, you need to build out your track, and you just get me 2 videos of the best runs that you have, and we'll average whatever those 2 best runs are. So if you get it to stop in the zone at the end twice, then your average will be a 3.5. So that will be good. I'm going to put on there if you want a 4.0. There's always a way to get a 4.0. So the 4.0 is an actual stopping mechanism. Okay, so and I had it stop in the zone twice in a row, but this year what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it has to stop in the zone 3 times in a row, and it just can't randomly do. I mean, it can't just coast in 3 times. You actually have to have a stopping mechanism on the car that actually does it. Goes in the zone and it just stops it. And so you're going to need to show me in a video or in person how that stopping mechanism works. And it needs to stop in the zone. I'll just leave it at twice. I'll just leave it at twice. But this twice just can't be coasting in. If you get it to coast into the zone twice in a row, then your average is going to be a 3.5. But if you get it to stop in the zone twice in a row and you actually have a built stopping mechanism that stops the car, which means you probably could do it more than twice in a row, then that's how you can get a 4.0. So those are the dimensions for the playing field and what you need to do. Helpful hints. CDs are far and away the best wheels, and 4 wheels is usually the best. Fishing line is the best cord to use. Make your car light. Balsa wood might be good. You want to stretch balloons over the wheels. That makes for good traction to be able to start so your wheels don't spin out on you. Your cord should come loose from your axle after the pull is complete so the car can coast. I'll show you what that means in a bit. When the bow is tight, it should be right next to the axle. The axle spinning freely in its socket is crucial. Eyelets generally don't work the greatest, although most of you are probably going to try to use them. It's another thing that I try to tell you not to, and everybody does it anyway. Stopping mechanism would be genius. So if you look at this example of the car right here, I'm not saying this car is a good car. It's just I thought it was I could just use it save it for a good example. All the balloons are melting off of the thing. But the way it works is there's a board here, and they've cut it out and stuff, and there's axles. Now, they actually made axles spinning in like paper rolls, which is kind of weird and probably not the greatest idea, but you need an axle so there's a wooden dowel they use for an axle that goes through there, and they have a hot glued, I guess, onto these CDs, and so it can spin. And the key is to make sure that this gets on, these two axles are totally really parallel and the wheels are aligned. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of curving like this, and you don't want that. So over on this other one, it's the same kind of a deal, but you'll see that the axle is exposed in the middle because this is going to be our drive axle. We're going to attach the string to this axle to spin it. So the best way to do it is to have on this axle some kind of a little nub or some kind of a little, right here they put a nail through this, so that when you tie your string onto the axle, you only need, you don't want super long string. You need string that's just long enough to get from this to the axle. And you'll notice that on the end of the string they put a little loop. And the reason for that is because they can just take the loop and they can put it on here, right on that tip there, and then they can start wheeling it up. And when you're doing that, it's going to reel the mouse killer bar back. So it's going to go like this, and it's going to get tighter and tighter and tighter. And so then when you let it go, if I turn it around here, and I were to let this go, this is going to start pulling, and it's going to pull the string, and it's going to be turning the axle. Now, if you don't have rubber balloons on the outside of this, it might actually pull it with so much force that it spins out. And generally, you don't want to do that to get a big distance. So if I let this go, see it spun out a little bit. Okay, but now it's not as much pressure, and it takes off and it starts to go. Now you'll notice here that if I just let it go, if I just let it go here, and it spins, you'll see that came off the hook. That's crucial, because if you just tied this on here and you let it go, eventually what's going to happen is it's going to start actually wrapping back up, and it'll stop your car, and then it'll actually even go backwards. So you want, when this thing is done pulling and all the energy has been expended, you actually want this little thing to come off. So now it can coast for a long time. Okay, unless you're going to try to do some kind of stopping mechanism, and maybe you can figure out some stopping mechanism with the string, or there's people have used this as a bolt, and it kind of screws into a nut that stops it or something when it gets to the right zone. There's ways you can do it, but it's kind of tough. So generally, I don't think I had anybody the last 2 years make a stopping mechanism. So that kind of shows you how tough it is, I guess. So this is probably not a great mousetrap car, but it probably works decent enough. So you need to build a mousetrap car sometime before the end of the first quarter, and you need to either show it to me twice or video 2 good runs, and with a proper field. No cheating on this. Please try to be honest and do it correctly. So that's how the mousetrap car is going to work for the first quarter.